Clock End Talk, an Arsenal podcast. I'm your host, Tez. You can find me at Gooner Tez. You can also find Clock End Talk at clockend_talk. This week I am without Tony because he is busy doing other stuff and living a bit of a life, something to do with bowing out of Europa League, and the man hasn't picked himself up off the floor yet. So I've got Darren with me today. How are you, Darren?
Tez, I can't believe you've banned Tony.
He's sitting on the sideline.
You've dropped Tony. Tony has been ever present. Every podcast, Tony's here. And now you've just had enough of him and you just drop him, you discard him, you just cast him aside. Disgraceful behaviour.
Should I say the Mustafi? The Mustafi of the podcast? Also, we did have or may have Addy coming on, but he's running a bit late, and I said to Darren, "Oh fuck it, let's start without him." So Addy might pop in a bit later, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah, fairness, we have started 10 minutes early.
Yeah, that's right. We did say one time, and then we're 10 minutes early, so all good. Okay, look, it's been a very interesting week for Arsenal this week, and I was going to do a podcast after the Europa League bow out, but I just felt, Darren, we needed a bit of time to just stay calm, settle, and gain our thoughts back a bit, mate.
Yeah, it was a strange, situation, because the manager, Mikel Arteta, absolutely went as strong as he could possibly go. We did the hard work, winning 1-0 away from home. And, I was in the stadium and it was a full house and the crowd were good. The Greek fans were even better, I must say. But it felt like it was going to be job done. There was never really a point where you felt this was going to go wrong until it went wrong. It was... but I think it sort of just showed that, no matter how much we like Arteta and what he's doing to the club, we're still not there. We still didn't have a shot until, I think, the 75th minute in that game. We still huffed and puffed a lot, but it didn't look, that good. We were never that convincing. Unlike last night, which we'll get onto the FA Cup, I'm sure, after this. But what did you think, Tez? I mean, did you worry? When did you start to worry that we weren't going to go through?
I'll be honest. I had to go midway through extra time, and I thought, oh, sweet, we've got this wrapped up. It's all good. I then jumped on and went, oh my fucking God, what has happened in the last 5 or 10 minutes? I seen lots and lots of criticism against the Aubameyang missing one or missing a sitter. It's been banter FC all week.
It's a pity Tony's not on, isn't it? Because I don't know, those of you on Patreon may have caught the argument that me, Tony, and Tez had after the podcast finished. It was really worth your $3 a month or whatever you have to pay, because we just were tying up, and then we just started talking about who should be, who was the best striker we had, and Aubameyang was like number one, and then Tez said no, Van Persie was number one. I thought, that cunt, never. So I started singing the praises of Ian Wright and said, look, Aubameyang's not even that good. Ian Wright would piss all over him. And we ended up arguing for about a good 25 minutes after the 2-hour podcast. It was a long podcast. And I just sort of feel like I want to say to Tony, Righty would have banged that in. He would have. That's why he's got hero status.
I knew you were waiting for that. You were just waiting for this opportunity, weren't you, to think, yeah, he's missed one, you fucking beauty.
Now, look, Tez, really, joking aside, it was so sad, because it's always hard when that away goal. I think the away goals rule was brought in, when I was a kid, to stop negativity, stop teams going away from home and just trying to play for a draw. Football's changed a lot, and although it just seems like that's a bit of a strange rule now, because teams do try and come and attack. But it's always a frightening thing. If they get one, then we've got to get two, and it just feels sort of a strange way to play football. And once they scored, that was it. And yet we still had a chance to nick it right at the end. And the Emirates, we all talk about how fabulous Highbury was, and we talk about what great nights there were there. And of course, the club was there for 100 years. There's going to be big nights. We've been at the Emirates now for 15 years? I don't know, give or take. I don't know. We haven't really had any big nights there. We haven't had any big successes. We got to the Champions League semi-final, I think, against Manchester United, if I remember, 1-0 down in the first leg. And I've never been to the Emirates where it's been so up for Tony will probably correct me now and tell me it was a fucking Tuesday night in fucking at Highbury, and I got it all wrong. Just remember, we turned up at the Emirates and the crowd was singing, and all up the bridge and across the bridge and up the stairs towards the stadium. Everyone was going mad. We're going to beat United and go through to the Champions League final. And I think Rooney scored in the first 5 minutes, and he just killed it. That's it. We're 2-0 down, away goal, and we had to score 3. But I can't remember many big nights. Beating Leicester last minute when we were going for the title that year with them. Yeah. Great games, a couple of great games against Spurs. But actually, sort of really big nights where we're going to win something, we just haven't had any. And that was a chance to really make some history. And who knows, it's only the last 16 in the Europa League. It may have gone nowhere, but it might have just been the start of having one of those big days. And we just haven't had one yet. Gutted.
Yeah, look, and I'll pick your brain in a second. There was one other thing that came out of that game that I noticed, and look, we all go to Twitter and we have a squizzy at what everybody's thinking because we might have different thoughts to others. I seen probably the most criticism I've seen of Lacazette yet. I've seen criticism this season of him, and hey, I agree with everybody and what you're saying about Lacazette. Your thoughts though, Darren, was he as poor as people are saying?
I just don't get Arsenal fans. We're always looking for something to complain about. Really? I see, the previous game where Leno let in a goal that might have been his mistake, and I saw lots of calls for Martinez and lots of things on Twitter saying Leno's not good enough. He's the best goalkeeper we've had at the club for a long time, and he's a 25, 26-year-old kid who's doing his best, always, on top of his game, and yet the crowd decide they hate him. The same is with Lacazette. He was our Player of the Year last year. He doesn't become the worst player in the world 9 months in, but we seem to just want to find something to criticise. The abuse that Aubameyang got. Look, Aubameyang missed a sitter at the end of the game, and do you think he meant to? Let's just think these players aren't the best, as I said last week. We haven't got any great players. That was what I meant. Not really world class. We've got a lot of very good players. I don't think we've got any great players. Just because they're not great world class players, why do we have to just criticise all the time? I just don't get it. I mean, and I'm not saying it's perfect. I get me moans about players. We've all got our favourites, and we've all got players that we don't like. But why does, suddenly Lacazette, from being the Arsenal Player of the Year, and there's some fabulous names on that trophy, suddenly we've decided he's not good enough. And, maybe he's not, and maybe he won't be playing at the club next year. But it isn't a reason to just criticise him. And I will say that it is a lot more online than at the game. When he got substituted the week before last, he got a standing ovation as he walks off the pitch, for his effort and his work rate. And that means so much when you're paying £40, £50 a week to go, or a fortnight to go and watch Arsenal. All you really want is for him to give everything. Put their heart on their sleeves, wear, that badge with pride, and put in a shift. And he does that. And, it doesn't mean he may not have the best game, he may not be on top form, but at least he gives everything. And that's all I ask as a fan. That's all I ask.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to be negative because it's been a negative fucking week, okay? But I have to ask the question, who are we... Look, are we... Someone's got to be accountable for, obviously, us being out of Europa League. A lot of people have a lot of non-Arsenal fans have pointed the finger at Aubameyang for missing the goal. A lot of Arsenal fans are pointing the finger at Lacazette. Is it fact? A few have mentioned Arteta, and I'm thinking, oh, really? Come on, we're going to go there. Where are you putting the? And I know you don't want to point the blame at one person, but where's your thoughts on who's the blame for us being out of Europa League?
Tez, I said on last week's podcast that the Champions League and the Europa League are cup competitions. Liverpool won the Champions League. I mentioned this 6 years ago when they won the Champions League. That game where they were 3-0 up, 3-0 down, whatever, won it on penalties. Liverpool that year were the 5th best team in England. They didn't even qualify for the Champions League. The Champions League and the Europa League are cup competitions. It's a knockout competition. Not always the best team wins. There is blame, of course. Blame. It's a very general word. The manager put out his best side available. The players worked really hard to the system that they were put out in, but it wasn't good enough. We didn't play very well. We took 75 minutes before we created a chance. We were a little bit unsure whether to stick or twist. We were 1-0 up with an away goal. Do you really go all out when you're winning with that score? No, you sort of hold back a little because you don't need to. You just need to see the game out. And, it is one of those situations where who's to blame? Why do we have to blame someone? Everyone wanted to win. We were probably the better team over the 2 legs, but not by much. That's where we are at the moment. That is where Arsenal are. European competition's difficult. And it's a cup competition, and we just didn't get the rub of the green. I've just seen Liverpool get knocked out of the FA Cup by Chelsea tonight. Chelsea battered them. Does that mean Jurgen Klopp's a cunt? Does that mean Jurgen Klopp doesn't know what he's doing? Does that mean there's some blame at Liverpool tonight when those players should be held up against a wall and shot one by one because they went out to a team that's in 4th place in the Premier League?
I get where you're coming from, but
where do you put the blame? Where do you put the blame?
Well, I don't. I agree as well. I don't know who you blame because for me it's so hard because you've got to. I hate blaming one, but you've got to point the finger at a few Arsenal players there who I didn't think. I didn't think Lacazette had a great game. I don't think David Luiz had a great game. Hector Bellerin didn't have a great game. Ceballos, I don't think, had a great game. So, look, and I don't want to point the finger at one, but when you're coming up a team like that, they're no world beaters, are they? It's not a PSG, it's not an Inter Milan, it's not a Manchester United, it's not a Chelsea, as you mentioned, with Liverpool. I'm not sure where this team are coming in their league, but I don't think they're world beaters. They actually, they are winning their league, and well in front of winning their league. But I don't.
I
don't know if they're world class team. That's all.
Do you remember the Arsenal? We always talk about the Invincibles. For me, the best team was 2 years before that. The Invincibles was a great side, obviously, but the side 2 years before that. For me, my 45 years of watching Arsenal was the best team ever. Around that, 2004, 2002 team. That period was great. And we got to one Champions League final. 2006 was it? I don't know. We in the Champions League that year when we were by far and away the best team in Europe. By far and away, we were winning our league with style. We were beating everyone who was put in front of us. That year, we went away to Chelsea in the semi-final of the Champions League. I was at the game, lucky enough. I think it was a 1-1 draw, but we controlled the game. We'd got the away goal. It was a draw. We didn't even push for it. Let's take them back to Highbury and we'll just destroy them. And, we went to, I think it was 2-0 up, 1-0 up very quickly. This was a team that could score goals for fun. Chelsea got an equaliser. I think it ended 2-2. Chelsea got an equaliser with 5 minutes to go. We're knocked out of the Champions League. It was devastation. We didn't go, that Wenger's a cunt, those players are cunts. And that was a great side. Let's face facts. This isn't a great side, this Arsenal side now. It's not a great side.
I see what you're saying, but I was sitting, a mate of mine came over, right? And he doesn't follow football, he doesn't follow any sports really, a bit of motorsports, but anyway. He was sitting down watching the game with me just because I'm such a lovely bloke. He just wanted my company. but so we're sitting there and look, it's on early in the morning here, so we're sitting there having a cup of coffee And he said, fuck, you're firing up. And I said, well, mate, we should be beating this team. I said, plus we're at home. He said, I don't understand the two teams. He said, can you explain it to me? I said, well, it's a Europa League game. I said, this is the second leg. It goes over 2 legs, away goals and things like that. So I explained it all to him. But then I said to him, but Arsenal, the team, are probably worth close to $600 million of players. If you were to sell all players, maybe 700 mil of player sales. I said the team that we're playing up against is probably worth 100 million. I said that whole team. I said that's type of the only way I could put it in perspective for him to understand that how good Arsenal was up against this other team. And he went, shouldn't you be winning then? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Come on, Tez. If that's the case, then Manchester United will probably win the Europa League this season because their team's worth more than ours. It doesn't work like that. Leicester would never have won the Premier League title.
I know it doesn't work like that, but like for him to understand it, I was saying like this is what I follow Sydney FC. Like one player. A $4 million player is worth more than the whole of Sydney FC, and then we go and play in Asia. Like it's so. What I was trying to put it on as terms of how he might understand. If Sydney FC come up against Arsenal, well, you'd expect us.
Yeah.
You'd expect Sydney FC to get beat 5-0.
Yeah, Tez. Look, I don't want to paint a picture that I walked out of the stadium on Thursday night going, oh, never mind. That was good. I was fucking devastated. You got to remember that, I might sound like, it's only a game, it's an FA Cup. I was there. I spend all my life following Arsenal. I've said this many times, is that I'm not religious. I've never been brought up with any religion in my life whatsoever. My parents took me to be christened when I was a baby, and the church said, no, you don't come to church, fuck off. So, my parents didn't bring me up with any religion. My dad was a mad Arsenal fan, and that became my religion. That's where I go every other week throughout my life, every weekend for 45 years, wherever I've been in the world. I have followed Arsenal, whether that's listening to a radio, listening to the World Service of the BBC at 6 o'clock in the morning in Los Angeles, where I was living, on my honeymoon, the second night, listening to us on a fucking £80 it cost me fucking 20 years ago to listen to Arsenal get beat 3-2 by Bournemouth on a fucking crackly dial-up connection by Bolton, sorry. I love this club. I didn't just fucking watch us lose and go, oh, that's all right, never mind. I was devastated.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Because you worry me when you're talking. I think, oh, fuck, doesn't he really care?
All I'm saying is that I don't see that the players didn't try. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I don't see that they weren't playing for the manager like we did see under the end of the Emery regime and at the end of the Wenger regime. I didn't see any of that. I saw us not really being a very good football team, and we got caught out because we didn't really know what to do. And we've got a very inexperienced manager, and that's a big problem because he's got to learn on the job. And I'm delighted that he's in charge now. I'm absolutely 100%, because I think me and you agreed.
I'm the same, yeah.
Me and you weren't too sure on this. Why did a club of the stature of Arsenal employ somebody who's got no experience? I think me and you absolutely agree 100% on this. But after watching him last night in the FA Cup, I'm ready to marry him and have his children. I'm going to give him every chance.
No, I agree with everything you said. Look, I'm going to move on because we've already discussed for the last 15 minutes on Europa League, and it's a kind of a thing to get through. So let's move on now to FA Cup, Portsmouth. Now,
yeah, Portsmouth. You don't have to say mouth. It's mouth. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I know it's spelt mouth.
Yep.
But we won't correct you on your English, on your Australian pronunciations. It's Portsmouth.
Portsmouth. Okay. Now, look, it was interesting for me here because you've seen us come out of Europa League. We've failed and we've fallen out of that competition. Now, I expected changes. And to see the amount of changes we got in the FA Cup, I really thought, for me, and we talked about who do we blame and whatnot, for me this was Arteta saying, hey, you fellas fucked up, we're out of Europa League, now we're going to give these young blokes a go in FA Cup. Is that the way you read it, or did you think we just need change? There was too many, two close games within a couple of days and things.
No, I mean, we had it's a Thursday night against Olympiacos. This was a Monday night game. We normally play Thursday, Sunday, so there was an extra 24 hours of rest, and we're not playing West Ham until the Saturday. I don't know. I looked at that team selection and I was shocked. I thought, what the fuck's he doing?
Yeah.
And I hadn't I didn't know why. It seemed like it was a dead rubber, and it just decided, this. I'm saving everyone for the league game, and I'm still not sure that isn't the reason. It's almost like he has said, right, well, let's work on the West Ham game. We now need to finish in the top four. FA Cup is superfluous. I hope not. I really hope not. But it's either exactly what you say, that he's just told them all, right, you lot fuck off. You just let me down, big style. I'm going to give the kids a chance. Or he's just dismissing the FA Cup and he's throwing all of his eggs now into the league basket. I mean, what do you think now you've seen them play and you've heard him talk?
Well, I didn't listen to his press after it, but I watched the game after fucking trying to find it. But anyway, I watched the game and, mate, look, the kids stood up. When I say kids, I thought Pablo's first game in an Arsenal shirt was really good. It was really good to watch him because I know absolutely nothing about him. So that was good. I thought Socrates played an outstanding game. And then Willock. I thought Willock, Nelson, Martinelli. I don't know if there was many. Okay, if you want to point the finger, Torreira might have been a little bit under, but other than that, mate, it was a good game. I don't know much about Portsmouth, so what are they? League 1, League 2, or Championship?
I think they're in League. They're League 1, third place, I think, and they're on an incredible run. I think they'd won something like 19 of their last home games, or 10 of their last home games, and unbeaten in 19. They put on a huge run. Mm-hmm. They rested their two strikers yesterday because they've got a huge game next weekend. But they're a lower class side in amazing form.
Okay,
yeah, so that's where they were when we took them on. But they are League 1. They're two divisions below us.
Okay, yeah. Well, that was the other thing I wasn't sure of. I didn't have time to sit there and research who they were. But the other thing was the team that they put out. Where's that on par with the team we put out? Is that, would you say the team we put out is still far, far better than what they put out? So that was the other thing I wasn't sure of.
I mean, you look at our side. We've got David Luiz. Has he won the World Cup? He's David Luiz right up there. Socrates, seen and done everything. New guy Murray, obviously great pedigree. He's got. We've just signed him. He's our big signing from the summer. These are key players, and then the best of the youngsters that we've got in the side, the best of everyone. Look, Tess, I've got to lay my cards on the table here. I enjoyed watching last night more than I think I've watching Arsenal for the last 2 seasons. Well, I loved it because this, I think I mentioned it, the podcast before last I was on, which was about 6 months ago, thanks to you and your banning me. I watched that last night, and that's where I see where Arsenal are going to be possibly next year, because I can see both Aubameyang and Lacazette leaving the club. They may not, but I can see them leaving the club because of their contract situations and because of where we are in the Champions League, or lack of Champions League football. you look at that is the future of Arsenal. All of them played last night. Guendouzi, Martinelli, Saka, Nelson, and Nketiah. These Torreira even. These are the young spine of the team. It's the youngest team Arsenal put out for years, and yet. And I don't know what stream you managed to watch last night. It was on BT Sport here last night. The commentators, I missed the first 5 minutes of the game because I'm sure it was on Arsenal website. I saw it was 8 o'clock kickoff and it was 1:45. So I missed the first 5 minutes. And then I listened to the commentators for 40 minutes say how terrible Arsenal were. Now,
actually, I must have the same commentators. I was on, I found it on ESPN of all stations. I thought, fucking hell. So ESPN and they were, American commentators, but yeah, they were very, very negative towards Arsenal for the first probably 40 minutes as well. So.
And all I was watching, Tez, and we were under the cosh from a team with a great home support. I mean, Portsmouth are one of those teams that was in the Premier League not too long ago. Finances fucked them up and they found themselves, like a lot of clubs, shipping 2 or 3 divisions. But they were a Premier League side. They won the FA Cup fairly recently. They were in the final quite recently. Their crowd, it's a small ground, the crowd were right behind them. And of course, these are tricky ties. I mentioned on last week's podcast. I've been at Arsenal, we got knocked out by Wrexham, who were in the bottom tier of the Football League one year, York the following year. We've had terrible times in this third year, but we're Arsenal. We want to win the FA Cup. We're away from home at a tricky tie. It's got banana skin written all over it. It's the worst you could possibly hope for. And they were really good, Portsmouth. They were really good. They really went for us.
Yep.
And what did we do? We kept the ball. We kept passing it. That's what I kept hearing. We're passing it backwards. We keep passing it back. But we retained possession better than any Arsenal side for the last 2 years.
No, he was best.
Under Emery, we could never do that. We just conceded possession. And I just thought last night we kept it and we kept it and kept it and we worked them and worked them and worked them. And then finally, look at the statistics. I think our passing completion was something like 87% in the first half and 89% in the second, something like that. It was ridiculously.
Yeah, it would be up there, yeah.
And we just passed them to death. And eventually they just faded because we were much better than them. I thought it was a joy to behold yesterday in the second half when all of those young kids, right until the 93rd minute, were still chasing and chasing and chasing and working for each other and playing the simple ball. And all of them were a delight to watch yesterday. And I just thought that's a glimpse of where we are. That's the glimpse of our future.
That's the future, yeah. No, and look, and that's why I like the... and I'm going to get onto it a bit because I did hear a couple of people talking about the FA Cup and the prestige of the trophy, and there's been lots of things going around. Would you prefer Europa League trophy or an FA Cup trophy, and where's this put Arsenal this year? There's lots of questions, right? But this is why I enjoy the FA Cup. Okay, I don't know a lot about Portsmouth, but I know the prestige of them, and like when I say the prestige of what the cup means for a team like Portsmouth. They're playing at home in front of 20,000 fans, and Arsenal's come to play, and I'd imagine it'd be a great day out of football, and that's why I like the FA Cup, because you get to see these teams that I don't see them on TV because we don't get it, but it shows me the history of what you guys have in England, where these teams could win and could come up. They get to come up against Arsenal. They get to come up against your Liverpools, Chelseas, and things. And that it means a lot to me when you see teams like this. But in getting on to my next question is, I did see lots of tweets. Same old Arsenal actually tweeted it out, and good boys over there. Today they were talking about the FA Cup, and there's lots of fans saying that if we win an FA Cup, what does that mean to you? Well, it probably doesn't mean a lot for international fans, Darren, but it probably means a lot to you guys at home.
Well, it should mean a lot to our international fans. I've said this, obviously I lived in India for the last, 5 years or so, or 4.5 years. And I've said this many times on the podcast that I run in India, is that I mean, I think it's a generational thing. I don't think it's a geographical thing. When I was a kid, there wasn't much football on. You know, I mean, these days, every game you want to see, you can see, whether it be from an internet stream or television. All of the big companies cover football, and you can pay for it pretty much every game you want to see. I come from a generation where, you know, we would very rarely have a live game. The only live game that was on in a year, and I know this makes me sound really old, but I'm not that old in the scheme of, you know, football things. But there was only one live game a year, and that was the FA Cup final. So it was such a big deal because we didn't have live football. And this went on for a long time. I'm not talking about, you know, back in the day when I was, you know, when it was just people wearing flat caps and it was all in black and white. I'm talking about for you know, all through the 70s and 80s, there wasn't a lot of live football. The year we won the match at Anfield, you know, to win the title 2-0 in 1989, that was a very rare live game of football. It's 89, so that's not that far, you know. So the FA Cup was everything. It was the big thing, and the TV companies both. We only had two main channels in those days on television, and both of them took it seriously. So from first thing in the morning, you'd see the players leaving, you'd see them getting on the coach. Then they'd have games. It's a knockout, you know. Whoever was playing, Liverpool versus Manchester United. It was always a big deal, and every kid that was growing up in those days, and all the players now, you know, or the players from the last 10 years would also get brought up with this experience of the FA Cup. So it was a huge competition. Now, I understand now we have football to death. You know, the Champions League is huge, the Europa League's on telly. You know, every match is on television. We've got so much football that, of course, it's lessened the impact of the FA Cup. It's become a lesser trophy, you know. However, Arsenal Football Club and most football clubs can only win a couple of trophies. You can win the league. Well, that ain't going to happen for most teams, especially this year, the way Liverpool have gone about it. Most teams aren't in Europe. So that leaves the FA Cup and the League Cup to win. That's all we're playing for. And most teams are fighting relegation. So this is such, for me, a big opportunity to win a trophy. And throughout my life, you know, we should be proud at Arsenal. We've won the trophy more than anybody else. We've won the trophy this century 6 times. Yep. You know, it's a trophy that we should be proud of. And, you know, why not try and win it? I don't see why people don't get excited about it. It's a great day out at Wembley, and I know that's as an English thing, and I know we only get 20,000 tickets. So I'm lucky enough. You know, one of my favourite games in the last 50 years was our last win against Chelsea. Chelsea had won the league. We weren't expected to turn up. You got 50,000 Arsenal fans singing their asses off, and the team turned up and we won the FA Cup. Enjoy it. But what's the point of fucking winning at home against Newcastle and, you know, winning away at Leicester City? Win the fucking FA Cup. Finish fucking 6th. Finish 10th. Don't care. Let's have a trophy.
Look, I think, and I'm going to do it with you boys as well, the Gooner to Gooner, and I'm pretty sure I said one of my highlights was, you know, obviously the 3 FA Cup trophies, 2013-14 with Wenger. I said it was a real highlight for my season that year because of that. There's the first trophy that he'd won in probably 10 years. And I know it's an FA Cup trophy and people go, oh, fuck, it's only an FA Cup. Fuck, mate, we won 3 of the cunts. Give me more of them. I don't care. Like, if we go on this year and we're knocked out of Europa League, we don't make the top 4, but yet we win an FA Cup trophy, look, I'm not going to be jumping off the walls, but I'm going to be happy that the boys won a trophy. And
yeah, that shit mob down the road, Tez, Tottenham. What would they give for a fucking FA Cup win? Seriously, what they would win. I think their last trophy was a League Cup, which has always been, you know, since Wenger took over anyway, has always been the minor competition, the League Cup. And I still say try and win it. It's a fucking competition. Absolutely, let's try and win it. But Spurs have won that one. They haven't won an FA Cup for fucking years. They would die for an FA Cup. So would West Ham. So, you know, it's a trophy. There's only fucking 3 we're going for domestically. We're not going to win the league. fucking hell, what's the point of, that we got a lot of criticism under Wenger because, the top four was a trophy. And now we realise what a great job Wenger did keeping us in the top four all that time. But what's the point of getting into the Champions League anyway when we're not good enough at the moment and we get our asses kicked? Let's fucking get to Wembley. Let's win the FA Cup. It'll be a great fucking day out and it'll be another trophy.
What people don't also realise, Darren, is, and I listened to quite a few podcasts as well and different interviews and that with different players. I heard, I'm going to go back to the A-League because it was on Fox Sports, so you boys wouldn't have got it, right? So he was a Wanderers player. He used to play in the Premier League for Sutherland and different. I can't remember his name now. But anyway, it was really interesting how he was talking about the pressure of social media and the pressure of Twitter and Facebook and even emails and all this. You can't go to the pub and have a beer because if you lose a game, you're going to get fucking annihilated by fans. And he was saying that, but to win a trophy like an FA Cup or a League Cup or something, that means the world to them because as a player. Because he knows that, okay, he played in the Premier League for, I think it was Sutherland, and
yes,
he was never going to win the Premier League. So
no.
it was just, and I only bring it up because it opened my eyes to actually see on how much it means to these players. And you talk about West Ham and even Arsenal, like they go on to win a trophy, like players there. Mate, they'd be fucking so grateful to win that trophy, and even if it is an FA Cup.
Chaz, I'm from northeast. I'm from Essex, which is to the northeast of London, and I come from a town called Harlow, which is very much a Spurs town. Growing up, it was mainly Spurs. And then West Ham, which is one of the nearest big clubs. There was a few Arsenal about, lots of Liverpool, because Liverpool were the dominant side in school days when I was going to school. A lot of Manchester United fans, because there always is. But I've got three really good friends who are West Ham fans, who are season ticket holders this year. And they still, when we're all in a pub on a Saturday night every now and again, and when we get onto football like we always do, and they still bring up 1980 when they beat Arsenal 1-0 in the final. That's still their big fucking, that's 40 years ago. 40 years ago, and they're still banging on about it because that was the highlight for them. West Ham, it's not a small club, but that was them. They beat the mighty Arsenal in Trevor Brook in header in 1980, and you've got to remember.
Who was that team you said again?
West Ham United.
Oh no! Before you said you was from South.
I'm from northeast. I'm from Essex.
Okay.
So I'm from a town called Harlow. Yeah. So I don't live there anymore, but that's where I'm from. That's where my mates are from, and that's my home. But it's a Tottenham town.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No,
the
player I was talking about, and you might know him. I didn't see much of him. Simon Cox.
No. Tony would know everyone.
He played for West Brom,
memory.
Nottingham Forest, Reading, Bristol City. But anyway, he's now at the Wanderers, and he's only had a couple of games. But they had an interview with him, and it was interesting, like I say, to listen to his story of he wasn't in big clubs in England, but probably West Brom was the biggest club he was at. But it was interesting just to hear his stories on like we're talking about minor trophies and different things. It means a lot to these players. So.
Yeah. Stop saying fucking minor trophy. It's only fucking three. What do you want?
Okay, but what do you call it?
Three.
What do you call
it? There's only three.
Okay, a trophy. Okay.
Do you know what? As I say, I don't get it. There's the league, which is won by, we won the league 3 times in the last decade, in this century, yeah? Is it? No, not even that. Twice this century, I guess.
Last century, yeah.
Do you know, that ain't going to happen every week. No. I think on average in my lifetime, we've won the league title about once every 9 years. But my friends down the road at Tottenham have never won it in my lifetime, and I'm fucking old. My West Ham mates have never won it in their lifetime. In my lifetime, the title is only won by a handful of clubs. The FA Cup is a chance for all of us. It's a cup competition. Like I said, it's a cup competition. You can get lucky. You can get to I think, we were called, back in the 70s and 80s, we were called Lucky Arsenal, because I think back in the 30s we won it without getting drawn outside of London. You can get lucky. You can draw shitty teams at home and get through and win it. It can be lucky, but generally it gives you a great final and a great day out. Just did love it. I love it.
Okay. Now I want to talk about, because we're not going to go through every different fucking FA Cup and the whole game and Europa League, because look, it's not because it's a minor trophy. it's because I don't want to get hung up on them two. On one was a good game, one was a shitty game. But I want to talk about. I'm just trying to find it here. So obviously the Premier League. Our top four ambitions now. Now we're out of Europa League, Darren. I did do an article the other week, and I keep referring back to it, but it's blown out of the water now because there were some results that didn't go in favour last week, which was good for us. Where do we put our top four ambitions now?
I don't think it's changed. For the last 2 months. 3 months even, we need to put a run of 4 or 5 wins together and we will be there or thereabouts. The fact is that we haven't managed to do that. We didn't do it under Emery at all, and since Arteta's been in charge, we now have the possibility to do it. I think we've won 3 on the trot. Have we won 3, 2, 3?
3, I think, yeah.
And we have an opportunity. I looked through, I think Tony questioned this, but I double checked. I looked through the fixtures when we were playing Newcastle 3 games ago. And over the next 6 matches, the next 6 weeks, it's freaky that all of our competitors, not every week, but are playing each other, and we are avoiding them. There was like a 6-match run, and we've seen the benefits of that. This weekend is another perfect thing. Spurs drop points, Manchester United drop points, Everton drop points, because they're playing each other.
Chelsea was the one result that I didn't pick, 2-2 against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Chelsea drop points, yeah.
Chelsea drop points. But look, not that it's, and I'll get on in a second because I want to talk about with the Invincibles. But Watford, beating Liverpool, like that's it doesn't do much for the table, but.
Mate, I was hoping you'd bring it up. We have to talk about it.
We have to talk about it, but there's games that, and Liverpool just got beaten this morning by Chelsea. I'm trying to think, Liverpool didn't put out a big team though. Mane.
Mane, Salah. I watched the game. It was a drop. They put out a full time. They put a couple of kids in.
Yeah. So like is this the Liverpool? Are we seeing a bit of a the pointy end of the plane's pointing down to the ground at the moment? They've lost a couple on the trot now.
They've lost 3 because they lost to Atletico Madrid as well.
That was the other one I was trying to think of. Yeah, in the Champions League. So.
Liverpool are an outstanding side. Winning every game is incredible, and their record over the last 12 months is just is second to none. Really, it's an incredible record, because even when we were going unbeaten, we drew a lot of games. Liverpool beaten near enough everyone, but it's almost incredible that a team can go so long unbeaten because of the nature of football. Olympiacos, Arsenal, the better teams don't always win. And, you have freaky games of football, and the Watford-Liverpool one wasn't one of these, but you have freaky games of football where a team will, the better team will hit the post 6 times, the opposition goalkeeper will have a worldie, and then the one team will just sneak up the other end, have one shot on goal, and it'll go in. That happens in football. You can look back at, all the time that happens. That's why bookmakers are so fucking rich, because your banker gets beaten every week. Who would have put Chelsea getting beaten or not winning at Bournemouth? Who would have put Watford beating Liverpool? But it's football. If it was easy to predict, then we'd all be rich.
Well, this week for me, this week for me, like we've got, and I'm just looking at the fixtures there now. So Liverpool, Bournemouth. Okay, don't worry about Liverpool too much. But the interesting ones for me: Chelsea, Everton, Man United, Man City, Leicester, and Aston Villa. Well,
Leicester are dropping like a stone. I think they've won 1 in 10. It's only that wonderful run of form that they had, just before we still had Emery playing for us. It was that period. I think they won 9 on the trot, and that took them away from everyone. And that's what I'm talking about. If you can put a run together, but they've won, I think, 1 in 10. I think they're dropping like a stone, but they've got the points in the bag, so no one's really catching them. But their form is worrying. They lost at Norwich last week.
Yeah.
And they lost a couple of big games, but they lost at Norwich last week.
Man United, Man City. Like, are we on Man City to beat United?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not going to catch Manchester City, but we can catch Manchester United. Well, we need to catch.
Yep.
We need to catch 2 of, Leicester, or 3 of Leicester, Manchester United, Manchester City, Tottenham, Sheffield United, Wolves, and at the moment,
Sheffield United, Norwich. So, and we're on Everton to beat Chelsea.
Well, I don't think it matters. Probably. Chelsea are slightly
Chelsea
ahead.
45 points and Everton's well down 11th on 37. So we're in front of Everton. So, I'd like Everton to beat
Absolutely,
Chelsea.
Yeah. Everton to beat Chelsea. Everton had a big new manager bounce, didn't they? They won 3 or 4 on the trot under... I think they got 17 points out of their...
something like that.
21 since he took over until last weekend. So, he did really well. But, you're right. We've got to catch Chelsea. We've got to hope Chelsea or Tottenham, Sheffield United, Wolves. Wolves are the one that scare me. They're in incredible form, but they're still in the Europa League. So maybe that'll fuck them up and tire them out.
I'm just thinking
Chelsea are going to have a free run because they're going to be out of the Champions League.
Yeah. So I was just looking at Wolves. So I was just looking at what games they got. So they got Brighton. They got West Ham coming up. They've got Aston Villa. They've got a good little run.
And the issue, Tez, is what I'm saying is that we have got to put a run of 4 or 5 together, and we haven't done that all season. And that's the biggest issue, is that, we've got West Ham coming up, then I think we're going to... No, we got... Have you seen our fixtures? I know we're in the middle. I know we're going to Southampton in a couple of weeks.
So we've got, obviously, West Ham up this week.
Exactly.
We've got Brighton, Southampton, Norwich, Wolves, Leicester, Tottenham, Liverpool. That's 3 games there that I worry... 4 games that I worry about. Let me repeat that.
Tess. So,
Wolves, Leicester, Tottenham, Liverpool.
Yeah, but the point is, if you look at our last 3 games, Newcastle... I can't even think who we played in the last 3 games.
Newcastle, Everton, and... Newcastle, Everton... Oh, Man City got postponed, that's right. Burnley we drew, Newcastle beat 4-0, Everton 3-2, and that's it. And then West Ham.
All right, so we've got 2 there, and our next 3, you'd like to think, if we're going to put that run together, then West Ham, Brighton, Southampton, if we win those 3 games, which we haven't done all season, but if we win those 3 games, we've put together a run of 5 points. And then when we have that fucking month where we've got Tottenham, Liverpool, Manchester City, when we've got that, at least we'll be there or thereabouts playing with some confidence. That's the hope. I'm not saying it's going to happen. That's the hope. That's the only chance.
West Ham, Brighton, Southampton, Norwich, I'd like to think that's, 3 points each game in the bag.
It has to be
coming
if we're going to
Wolves,
qualify for top.
Yeah, coming up against Wolves, mate. Confidence, and hopefully we can get a job done. And look, if we do win, I agree. If we do win, I looked at it again last week after me, you and Tony were talking about. We'll be thereabouts if we go on for a win. We will be. We will be thereabouts. So now that these other teams have dropped points, Premier League can sneak in the top 4. So. Let's hope.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to touch quickly on before we go to questions.
I forgot we got questions.
Yeah, I know. There's been lots of talk about transfers. Are you in the opinion Aubameyang and Lacazette are out the door?
I just don't see that as a club with their we made a big statement that players 2 years left on their contract will either have to sign or be sold. So, we've gone past that. We're coming up to the stage where we have to live and die by that promise. And if they sign new contracts, great. But it doesn't look like it. You know, it just doesn't look like it. They're both getting towards the end of their careers. They've got one more transfer left in them. And I'm sure they're going to want to be playing Champions League football. If we can maybe sneak into that top four, they may reconsider. But I think it is crucial. And I don't even blame them. Adebayor joined us because he wanted to be playing at the very top end of world football. He wanted to be winning the Champions League, at least competing for it. And he's not. You know, and, you know, at 28, 29, do you want to stay in London, you know, and enjoy your football, enjoy the money? Plus, the other thing is, if we're going to sign them, they're going to want Ozil-style wages. And when you've got Nketiah and all the young kids that played last night coming through, who are all on 30 and 40 grand a week, do you really want to screw your wage structure up? Don't think so. Mm-hmm. What about you? Do you think they could be here next year?
I don't think so. I think Lacazette wants out the door already. I don't think he hasn't been happy since Emery was managing Arsenal. Now Arteta's come in. I get the feeling, and don't get me wrong, I think it's good what Arteta's doing. He comes across to me like he's a no-nonsense guy. It's fucking my way or the highway, buddy. And I like that because I don't.
I think that's very obvious with Maitland-Niles.
Yeah, Maitland-Niles. But where Emery seemed to be, he had favouritisms where I like this little fella, you know, I like Guendouzi, that's the difference I see there already. And I like what Arteta's doing, mate. You're the boss. That's the way it is. So I think Lacazette's out the door. Aubameyang's an interesting one for me. I think I would love to keep him. However, and this comes on to my next question, is finances now with Europa League out the window. Yes, okay, if we get top four, I'd imagine the finances will come back up again. But where does this put, what strain does this put on Arteta's summer plans now? Are we led to believe on reports? Has he got no money for transfers? Does he have to sell these players to actually have a transfer budget? This comes around every time, Darren, but how much did we spend last summer?
I think we took a big gamble last year, didn't we? We gambled this year's budget on getting into the Champions League this season. You know, so we spent what we had, and we spent, you know, this summer coming up's budget to try and make ourselves strong enough to get through to the Champions League. And it's backfired a little. We're out of the Europa League and we're fucking 10th in the table. They allowed the previous manager, you know, to invest that. Arteta will know when he joined the club what he's got available, and I think they will try to make some funds available. But I think the sale of, there's a few players worth a few quid that he may need to sell so he can invest again. But he's also very, very lucky that he's got some really good kids.
Well, that was my next thing I was going to say to you. Don't forget, apart from Pepe, who was a big chunk of the transfer budget last summer, we've got Edu running around, and as we know Edu's pedigree, I would think he was Guendouzi type of. He knew something about Guendouzi, definitely Martinelli, and who other Brazilian kids and different kids is Edu looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good one that you bring on Martinelli, because, you know, this is where we talk about Lacazette's, you know, this, and I'm not talking for me, but you opened talking about Lacazette and how shit he is now. People are saying how shit he is, you know, and I'm sort of trying to say, look, he doesn't go from being the player of the year to being the worst player in the world. You saw with Martinelli when he had a few good games and everyone's saying he's the next best thing in the world. Then he doesn't play for a few games and we don't really miss him. And you watched last night, him, Nelson and Nketiah. You saw, I was saying I was so excited to see them, but you also saw their shortcomings last night. Martinelli was playing against the defenders who are in 2 leagues below him, and he didn't, take the piss. They had him in his pocket for a long time. He worked his nuts off, loved watching him play, but him, he didn't have an outstanding game. And he hasn't had an outstanding game. That doesn't mean he's shit. It just means that he's an 18-year-old kid that Edu has spotted, and I hope there's 2 or 3 others, because that is, unfortunately, we've been out of the Champions League now for a few seasons, and if we don't get back in this year, and we may even miss out on European football completely, then we have to cut our cloth accordingly. We cannot afford big signings. We will have to sell players if we want to reinvest. And I think they will, because Arteta will look at that side now and he will say, right, well, I need to build my side. This isn't my side.
So I'll just retract that. It wasn't Edu, of course. It was Sven. Sven was there with Guendouzi, so wouldn't have been.
Yeah,
Edu.
Guendouzi. Yeah,
sorry. But I would still think Edu is running around. Whatever he's doing, finding these Martinelli type players, which I'm happy with.
His job.
I'm happy with. Absolutely, that's his job, and I hope he does bring some more excitement to Arsenal. And I'd imagine Pablo would be Edu's recommendation. I know he was Arteta had him at City or something along them lines, but I'd imagine he actually probably knows a bit more about the player than we do. So yeah. So these little gems in the rough, mate. I'm happy for them. So I don't mind if we go on and win the Premier League with a couple of gems in the rough, buddy. It won't worry me at all.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's get on to some questions. MAA Gunner, and you can ask your questions at @clockend_talk on Twitter. We usually post it up 24 hours, 48 hours before we're going to record. What's changed from last year that made Lacazette so bad?
I'll move on.
When Tierney is Jack, could use Saka. Hang on, let me look at this. Tierney is Jack. Could use Saka play a left wing with Aubameyang up front if it seems he doesn't want to play Martinelli with Aubameyang? When Tierney is back,
so once Tierney finds his place, does Saka go back to sort of his place at left back? Is that what he's saying?
Left wing. Yeah. I think, mate, me personally, I think Aubameyang's doing really great on the left wing. Like, leading top goal scorer still. So I don't know why people want to adjust everything to fit another player in. If it's working, it's working.
I just think the key point here is if Aubameyang isn't here next year, then yes, absolutely. I think Saka moves to the left. If he signs a contract, Saka will move up front to the left. Tierney, who we didn't really see a lot of, and if I'm honest, didn't really impress that much in his few games that he had before injury. But the reports from Scotland are that he's an excellent player. The reports from Arsenal are that he's training extremely well. I think he will be a proper good player for Arsenal. I really believe that. I've got a very good friend in Scotland who watched him a lot, who said he was the best player that they had up there, Celtic had up there, and he really, I think, will be okay. So in which case, all this talk about, will Saka turn into a left back becomes redundant, and he then can go and play further forward. And I think that's again last night Saka was great, but you could see defensively he's not the best. He gets caught out. He can continue to learn, and it's great that he's had a few months learning that position. But I really would like to see him more as a Raheem Sterling, that sort of role, than as a left wing back.
Well, still on Saka. Max from Ask Brothers, the Ask Brothers podcast. I apologise, Max, because I thought you'd hung up the hat, mate. But I looked on the old podcast app the other day, and fucking look out. Oh, Max is back with his fucking Ask Brothers. So it's Ask Brothers Rantcast if you want to find it. So he's saying, how the fuck did Saka play 98 minutes of that game? Are you telling me at 2-0 it's worth leaving him on to get a fatigue-based injury? What the fuck is Arteta thinking? And has Maitland-Niles shagged Arteta's wife or something?
There's a really good point there on Maitland-Niles. You mentioned just now, Tez, that Arteta is a very single-minded man. He seems to be very strong in his own opinions, and players. He didn't play Saka. He dropped him against, was it Olympiacos or against Everton, was it? He played Kolasinac instead. It was only because Kolasinac got injured in the first 15 minutes or so that Saka came on. It's almost like when the players are being talked about as being the next best thing, he puts their feet back on the ground and leaves them out. Martinelli, everyone was saying how wonderful he wasn't in the next squad, and then he was on the bench for the next 2 games. And I think, that Maitland-Niles has obviously said something, or his attitude has not been right. Guendouzi fell out with Arteta, dropped completely from the matchday squad, but has obviously come back fighting in training and he's picked in the side. Maitland-Niles has to do that now. And it shows that, yes, he probably has shagged Arteta's wife, because he's right. He brought him on with 15 seconds to go last night. I don't know if you've ever played football, Tez, but there's nothing worse as a substitute when your manager says, all right, get warmed up. Yeah. What are you fucking talking about? We're in injury time. Get warmed up. You're going on. Fuck off. I've got to have a wash now. It's...
Yeah. No, mate, look, if I was Arteta, if I was Maitland-Niles sitting on the bench and I got warmed up with 15 seconds to go, I wouldn't be thinking the manager likes me. I'd be thinking, what the fuck? He didn't put him on there because he's shagging his wife. He put him on there because he's saying, listen here, cunt, I'm the boss around here, and you're fucking going on for 15 seconds whether you like it or not. Mate, it's just, for me, that move was a dictator move, which, hey, once again, I love and I like. He's the boss. He's showing the players who's boss.
Yeah. I mean,
go.
Who asked that question? I didn't.
Max from
who asked that question?
Max from the Ask Brothers podcast.
Because it's a really good question. He is right. We haven't got a left back. We've got Kolasinac out injured. Tierney's out injured. We've got Saka's our only left back, and he played him fucking ever, running up and down that line. And he did have a replacement. He could have brought somebody else on.
Who was on the bench?
Arteta is inexperienced, and his substitutions have been a bit questionable. So it's a very, very valid point. It's a very valid point.
Oh, Maitland-Niles, he was the only one on the bench who could play in that position.
Well, Xhaka could go at left, but there was options. If you're trying to cover that, Xhaka got brought on.
Left back's too good for Granite. Can't put him.
Yeah, but he's been playing in there, isn't he? When we've had injuries there, he's slipped back into left back.
There, yeah, exactly. Hakon Larson says Mike Dean is a cunt.
Fucking hack on. Me and you don't always see eye to eye. I made one note before we started this podcast. I've got to talk that the referee Mike Dean is a complete cunt. I just never want to see him fucking referee one of our games again, Tez. You think I'll get worked up about the FA Cup? Fucking that Mike Dean. The commentator's got it spot on yesterday. He fucking booked Guendouzi because he tried to take a free kick when we got fouled, tried to take a quick free kick quickly twice, and then on the third time sarcastically put the fucking ball down right in front of him and got booked for it. And yet 2 minutes later, one of our players gets taken out. Absolute professional foul, just took his legs away, and Mike Dean just lets it goes as a free kick. No booking. He's a cunt. He's always been a cunt. He'll continue to be a cunt, and I don't want him to ever fucking referee one of our games ever again. Cunt.
He is a cunt, absolutely. I'm not going to get worked up like you, but yeah, I do hear your frustration. Hang on,
Larson call this week's podcast Mike Dean is a cunt. Sorry for my language, by the way, but it is coming up to midnight and I'm fucking tired. I've got to get up in 6 hours and we're fucking talking about Mike fucking Dean because that's what he likes. He likes everyone talking about him.
He does. Okay, Hakon Larson, Maitland-Niles, and we don't have to answer all these because we've touched on a few. Maitland-Niles seems out of favour because of poor work ethics and mentality. Do you think Maitland-Niles will turn it around? Seems like Arteta has been of fear regarding what he says and give the opportunity to players who work hard and listens. Absolutely, look, I agree, he does. For me, Arteta, and I've said it a couple of times on this show, I like what I see in Arteta. The fucking player, I don't care whether you're on 25 fucking pounds a week or 350 pounds a week. He's the boss. You listen to what he says or you don't say or you don't get fucking game time, and I like that in a manager. People say the same for Mourinho. But you don't get the shit. These managers, they know how to manage players, and that was my biggest fear for Arteta. Like, Emery came in, he'd fallen out. Well, we hear fall out with Ozil. When he was at PSG, he fell out with Neymar. He doesn't know how to manage players and things. Like, if Arteta's setting the boundaries, mate, he's setting the boundaries, and these players got to work hard to get his attention. So I like it.
Jose Mourinho, the Mike Dean of football management.
It was the only other manager I could think of that he has that real "I'm a cunt, you do as I say" type of. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't let players walk all over him.
No. I mean, look, Maitland-Niles has got to look at that last night. I mean, and we don't know the background. We don't know.
No,
we don't know if he's been injured. We don't know if he's struggling for form. We don't know if he's struggling for fitness. We don't know. We just perceive by seeing the team selections and the lack of minutes that he's getting that there is an issue. And I think the manager has mentioned that everyone's got a clean slate and everyone has to work hard, and he will pick players based on their work rate. So Maitland-Niles has got to look at that last night and look at all of his mates he grew up with, who he was ahead of a year ago. He grew up with all of those in the youth side, and he's got to look at that last night and think, where have I fucked up? Because he had 30, 40 games under his belt, when most of those weren't even in the first team squad. And we've got a manager now that is happy to play these kids and give them their chances. So he's really got to either think, right, I want out of this club this year, which is possible, or he's going to work to try and get back. But the thing is, other managers in other clubs will also look at his attitude now and question it. And he really does need to make some decisions. And look, I'm a big Hector Bellerin fan, but he's had a huge year out with a very serious injury, and he hasn't looked his old self at all since he's been back.
No, that's right.
And I hope he rediscovers his form, and I hope he becomes the player that he looked at one year time that he could become. But Maitland-Niles could have looked at that position, and it really is up for grabs. And his attitude must be really poor because he hasn't got a look in. Last night, Socrates was played instead of him. So it's a big time for Ainsley Maitland-Niles. It's a big couple of months ahead for him.
Hackon says, and I'm just trying to understand this, what will happen in Pablo's Premier League debut? Own goal, red card, or he scores a goal, or a very bad mistake leading to a goal for the opponent? It's a curse, and he won't have a debut without any of these options. Fucking hell.
Can we just go, he'll score a goal, because that was the only positive thing.
Oh, yeah, I was looking for a positive one. Yeah, he scores a goal. Yeah, I'm doing that.
I thought he looked, we haven't really talked about his debut last night. I thought he looked very accomplished, very assured, and having a left-footed player in our back four on the left-hand side of the central defenders, he just looked very accomplished, just looked very comfortable.
Yeah, well, there was, Halls of Marble said, Murray looked good as did Eddie. Eddie being positioned as long-term Lacquer or Aubameyang replacement. I fear Aubameyang could join another English side. No, surely not. United need strikers, and despite their woes, are doing better at the moment. Is a move within the Premier League for him feasible? I don't think he moves to another Premier League club. I think he likes the country where he is, but probably the party life and things. But for me, I think PSG are going to be looking at somebody, and I wouldn't be surprised if he heads over to Paris for a bit of a party life and a retirement over there. And he'd be on really big money. I don't know if anyone else would take the risk, would they, at his age?
Well, we live in a world where there isn't any loyalty, and we love the players and they don't love us back. They'll kiss the badge, and then the following week they go and play for somebody else. Yeah. Robin Van fucking Persie. But I can't see it. He does seem to have an affection with the fans. I can't see it, but then I've been disappointed before. Mm-hmm. Robin Van.
Well, he won't. I can't see him going back to Germany. But it'll be Spain or France for me. And when I say Spain, maybe Barcelona are eventually going to need a replacement for Suarez. So
possibly. Just on the Starlight question, you mentioned Eddie Nketiah last night. I made a statement on this podcast about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's funny how you can, I speak as I find, and I'm generally very positive. And I was very surprised when Lacazette was getting so much shit, and I said, look, Eddie is just nowhere near ready to fill the boots of Lacazette.
No.
Do you know what? I watched him last night. They were hammering balls into him. His first touch has improved so much since I last saw him live a year or two back. And I thought the goal he scored, which the commentators were so poor last night. The commentator said, got a lucky bounce. When you look at it in slow motion, the ball is hammered at him and he manages to control it in his run and still manage to get a little shot away and nick it in the goal. I was hugely impressed with Eddie Leslie. He came back, he held the ball up better than any Arsenal forward, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Pepe included. The best I've seen anyone hold the ball up this season. Terrific performance. Really impressed.
Jay says, I'm really concerned about who will replace Ozil with...
don't matter.
We have always lacked creativity, quality in the middle when he's not playing. In reality, with our budget, who can we get to help us to fill his shoes? Most realistic transfer target you can think of. Look, I'll answer that very quickly. For me, Ozil, and I know I've said it, I think I've said it in the past, that maybe Ozil will go. But now I'm looking at things and thinking, I think his contract just runs out. I don't know if what's the Turkish club who were after him?
Trabzonspor or Fenerbahce this time, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know if they take the risk. And we were talking last, I don't know if it was during a pod or after it, that he'd be like a marquee player for them. And it's like a country buying a player, like it brings everything to that football league. I don't know where's that put, what position does that put Ozil in? I would nearly think the MLS, because, you're in America, it's getting lots of traction. Like, at the end of the day, like China, who's watching the Chinese Super League? What's that do for him as a player?
I don't think the next move will be for money. But I think you're right. He'll see out his contract. And I said, I flippantly called him a cunt. I like having Ozil back in the side. I've always thought he's a lovely player to watch. I just don't think he's been as good as we hoped he was going to be. Yeah. But he's on, whether it's 300,000 a week, 400,000 a week, we don't know. We know it's a lot of money, and no one in Turkey is going to be able to afford that unless we pay his wages. And why would we? It's not like he's an Alexis Sanchez at Manchester United, where they just needed him out of the club because he was bad influence. The same with Mkhitaryan from us. Maybe he wasn't. It was dragging people down. It was keeping people out of the side. Ozil is not a bad influence. Ozil is never in the press causing problems. He's living in London. He's earning a fortune. I'm sure he'll be here for one more year, and let's use him. Let's use him.
Yeah. And look, just realistically, he's thinking like, if this does happen, the next part of his question was who realistically would fit in the budget. I'm still trying to work out Arteta a little bit. Like, okay, is it the exact blueprint as Pep at Manchester City, or are you seeing something a little bit different? Because if it's the exact blueprint, well, for me, it's got to be somebody like, and who them players are, like realistically, like Kevin De Bruyne, it's got to be a City type midfield if that's the type of tactics Arteta is going to bring at Arsenal. And I'm not saying fucking good luck trying to find another Kevin De Bruyne, but you know what I mean. Like, it's got to be what fits Arteta's mould, and I'm still trying to work out a little bit of what Arteta's mould is just at the moment. Like, I'm seeing a bit of a lot of attacking, free-flowing football, which is good, and I like seeing that. But he's improving individual players, so does that mean he's going to, continue to work on improving your Guendouzi's, your Granites, your Mustafis and things like that? And do we need another an Ozil replacement. I don't know. If Ozil goes today, what do you do?
There's two things based on what you said there, Tez. That one, he looks like he's somebody who's working on the training field. His training sessions must be quite good because the players seem to be enjoying their football again. I mean, that's a big part. The players seem to be working for him. They really enjoy playing football. But Manchester City spent a shitload of money to get to where they are, and we don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's no way going. I mean, if we're going to get a Kevin De Bruyne, it's going to be someone that's under the radar that Eddie or somebody can find, because we're not going to be able to spend 100 million on him.
Yeah,
especially with no Champions League football.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you did mention that. Hakon Larson says, "What do you guys think? It's the most important. What do you guys think of the most important attribute for a modern day centre back?" Got us thinking now. Look.
Composure.
I'm thinking of players like, when you look at Van Dijk at Liverpool and players at City and the centre backs, they just know how to. I'm trying to think of what the word is. Composure, yeah, but they know how to talk to their troops, and position players and I feel as though you need that leader on the pitch. Leader's probably the word. Leader on the pitch, and for me that's the most important one. The left back, hey, get your ass, slide across, move forward. It just sometimes when you see Arsenal, remember the goal against Everton? Everton scored, a couple of minutes into it, and Kolasinac was fucking way. For me, if you had that leader on the pitch, they would have said, "Hey, back up here, buddy." Fuck me, what are you doing back down there? I feel as though we miss that at times. That leader just commanding the troops around a little bit. We had it when you look at past centre backs, Tony Adams, true leader. And you could look at past centre backs. There was leaders in amongst them centre backs, wasn't there?
Absolutely, and I think intelligence is just something that's missing a bit. When you're talking about Kolasinac running back 10 yards behind everybody else, there's a football know-how and a football knowledge that comes with time, and some players have that and some players don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's key. I think you're right. Leadership, composure. Can I just say though, last night, do you know what? I loved it. David Luiz, Mari, and Socrates hitting 50-yard diagonal balls into space. I can't tell you how much I loved watching Arsenal last night. We had 6 kids under 20 working their nuts off and showing some great skill, and then some real experienced old boys at the back who were playing the ball for fun. Honestly, I loved it. Thought we were brilliant to watch at times last night.
So last one on Twitter, Gunnar J, and we are actually going to do a podcast on this, so we won't go into answers or anything now. He says, can we have the Invincible discussion from last week again? Is that did we do that after the podcast, or was that?
I think it was after the podcast.
Yeah, so he must be a Patreon subscriber. Look, we're actually going to do something like that. I think we talked about it anyway, so... I think
our conversation was more about, we said we'd pick an Arsenal 11, a best Arsenal 11. We've got an international break coming up, haven't we, a few weeks' time, and we'd do a best Arsenal 11 based on what we've seen in our lives.
Was that the last decade?
He's probably talking about...
Was that the last... Was that not the last decade? Was that the last decade, or what was that last...
Well, we haven't we can argue that one.
Yeah, okay.
Come on, it can't be the last decade. That would just be a shit team, wouldn't it?
Probably, yeah. Mustafi would probably make the team. Fucking hell.
Absolutely.
Okay, couple of last questions. These ones come through the WhatsApp chat. What do you think we will leave? What do you think we'll leave this summer? Who do you think will leave this summer if we do not make Champions League or Europa League? What are the chances we qualify for Champions League this season? I'm going to say, look, it's thereabouts. I'd hate to be. I'm a betting man, but I won't be putting a bet on us at top 4. If we get top 4, mate, happy fucking days. Who do I think?
I guess the interesting thing is the Manchester City thing, isn't it? Because it could be top 5, and top 5 really is a chance. Top 4 is a little bit tough, but we can still do it.
Well, thinking of it, we've got the Manchester City game, which has been postponed. We're still going to play it. I said Tottenham, Leicester, and Liverpool and Wolves. If we can win them 5 games, fucking happy days, lads. Fucking happy days. Who do I think will leave? I think we discussed it. Aubameyang, Lacazette, I think will go. Socrates, I'm not sure of. I've been reading.
I think he's out of contract this year, isn't he?
Okay.
I think he signed on a 2-year deal. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
Tony would know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about him. Mustafi, I think, will stay now. Be honest, I think he seems happy now. Ozil, I said, I think we'll see out his contract, which Arsenal probably won't want. But hey, you signed him up on that deal a few years back, so you're not going to get fucking nothing back for him. I think that. Who else do you think? Mkhitaryan, I think, will leave. El Neni will definitely go. Their players out on loan. Yeah, I think that'd be about it.
I think it's a conversation for a quiet footballing, non-footballing week, isn't it?
We can do that later. Kevin says his Maitland-Niles career over now. Papa was chosen over him at right back for the Pompey game.
We discussed that really in quite some depth.
We did, yeah. Sushant says, I asked Arteta why Maitland-Niles has slipped down the pecking order. Sushant.
Yeah, same thing. I think we've covered the Maitland-Niles Arteta situation in quite some depth. Yep. Thanks for those questions, though.
Yep. Why was Joe Willock slipping so much today? Did you notice that?
I didn't, but I did think that he was a little, out of all of the players, he's had a strange year because pre-season he was setting the world alight and looked like he was going to be a star. Played the first 2 games, I think, which we won. Then he was dropped and hardly got back in the side again under Emery. And I think he's looking like a player that's just a little short on confidence, needs a run in the team. He hasn't had one since that first real month of the season. I didn't notice he was slipping over. But
wasn't there a game? There was a game a few months ago or a few weeks ago, and he was doing the same. And I think somebody shouted on the podcast, because I'm nearly 100% sure it was Willock as well, and I can't remember who he played against, but it was a similar thing. I'm sure he was slipping around. Might have been, I can't remember, but I vaguely remember.
Yeah, it does ring a bell actually.
Kevin says, what are your thoughts on Mary's debut? I think he played well, however, also I think he's too early. It's too early for a Premier League start, he says, Kevin.
Yeah, he played against the team from League One who had their 2 forwards on the bench. So it was calm, composed. I thought he played very well, good balance with his left foot, good in the air, made some decent blocks, distributed the ball beautifully well, but it was against a low league opposition. The proof will be over the coming months. But, as a debut goes, very good.
Yeah, I was happy with what I saw. I thought he played well. Like I said, I go back to we need that real leader on the pitch, and Mustafi isn't. Socrates, showed ability. I could notice him on the TV. He was shouting at players. Whether he was shouting the right things, I don't know. But I still need that real leader on the pitch for me in the backs. So that is all the questions. So thank you for everybody for your questions, and those who we didn't get to. Look, we've already touched on it. So
I've got one quick question.
Yep.
Where's Addy? Because now we're an hour and 15 minutes after the start of the podcast, the accurate time. And he did say only 2 hours before the podcast started that he was going to join us.
I know.
I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever happened to Addy? So I got no idea. Okay, that's it from us. We will return after the West Ham game. Yeah, that's Saturday
afternoon.
Saturday afternoon for you boys, Sunday morning for me. So we'll return after that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for subscribing. Also, a big shout-out to our Patreon subscribers. You guys are awesome. I've noticed heaps of them coming through lately, and we also have prizes and giveaways. I think we did say... I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's after the Brighton game. We're actually going to draw a piece of, Tony mentioned, some fucking tile or brick or something in the wall. It's at the Emirates Stadium. I got no idea what it is, but that's one of the prizes anyway. So just join up.
Very cool prize, yeah.
Yeah, apparently it's a cool thing, but I'm a long way from it, so I haven't seen it. So, okay, thanks, buddy.
Cheers, Ted. It's always a lot of fun.
It is, mate. It is. It was right.
Sorry for talking too much, but I can't help myself. I just can't help myself.
I just worry about you. You know, you're over there, and it's like 11:30 in the night, and you got to get up in a few hours. I worry about that sleep, mate.
Yeah, the problem is, Ted. Now I'm all wound up, all excited. I don't want to go to bed now. I'm going to go and pour myself a very large drink and enjoy myself.
You'll probably have dreams about Mike Dean.
Oh, you don't finish on that note. Don't mention him, Mike. Don't do that to me.
Thank you, everybody. Good day and good night. Bye.
Cheers, Tess. Bye.